K-pop and drum and bass are two of my favorite genres, so when you combine them together, I'm sure you can only imagine my excitement. ZEROBASEONE's debut EP, Youth in the Shade, continues to grow the expanding K-drum and bass scene, starting to gain popularity, with the likes of New Jeans Zero and their upcoming sophomore album Get Up, showing possibly the greatest attempts at such styling. Make sure to subscribe to keep up to date with my thoughts on that album when it drops. Youth in the Shade, while not entirely being composed of drum and bass, certainly showcases a similar level of both instrumental and vocal aptitude, and is an incredible first showing from this very promising new boy group. As we come into the summer months, many groups are starting to churn out and release in-your-face, up-tempo and feel-good tracks. Debuting during this time can be one of the hardest to succeed at, given the competition, and yet ZEROBASEONE manages to set themselves apart from their contemporaries, as well as managing to showcase their own unique take on an already fairly saturated, and to some, well past its expiration date genre, taking all the parts that make the core of a great track, while finding areas to simultaneously make it their own, and further separate themselves from the more bad boy-esque darker electronic and trap music that has acted as a plague on boy groups for a good while now. Back to ZEROBASE serves as both an intro to not only the album, but the boy group as a whole, while still managing to work effectively as a standalone track. As mentioned previously, leaning very heavily into a very summary drum and bass instrumental style. With relatively little lyrical depth, the track isn't exactly going to have you analysing its content, but what it does do is showcase the group's great vocal talent and general energy, building relatively slowly, reaching its eventual climax unsurprisingly at the chorus after the drop. Drum and bass's biggest draw and fault is how simplistic its instrumentals can seem, and while this does suffer from a similar familiarity, the different builds and rises, along with the rapid and plucky synth melodies at the back of the mix, lead to a perfect encapsulation of a drum and bass track for the masses. In Bloom pushes this similar envelope, pulling back slightly on what you might expect from your average drum and bass track to make room for a more traditional dance pop progression, and allowing more of a lyrical focus within the song. The chorus is pretty fun, and the rest of the verses are also pretty great too. I especially enjoyed the final rap verse, and is one of few rap sections from a boy group that I really enjoyed. New Kids on the Block gives into the more electro-pop side of K-pop. In my opinion, this song has a very affirmative quality to it, with it sounding like something you could very easily see artists like Twice working within. This song greatly goes to showcase their confidence and works as a great song within their debut. The chorus is super catchy and, like in Bloom, has some pretty great verses you can sink your teeth into. I also don't know if it's maybe just me, but given the punchy synth melody, I could very much see this being played in clubs, and while the ones I typically attend don't play this style of music, this would for sure get me on the dance floor. And I goes to develop their range, leaving the more up-tempo styling for a much more mature style of instrumental, working as a sort of blend between trap and R&B. It's a style you've almost definitely heard in K-pop before, yet they still manage to be somewhat fresh. This track also goes to pull the heartstrings these heartthrobs are almost guaranteed to have in their grasp, and like the rest of this project, managed to do so with a great level of proficiency, with great instrumentals and singable choruses. Our season continues to expand the range they're looking to establish for themselves, definitely leaning more into the very common trap dance pop styling male K-pop groups are often known to have. They, however, contrast the trap instrumental with their much softer vocals, with ad-lib chants and utilizing their deeper vocal rappers to add a variety of pitch to the vocal color of the track. This track also brings in some pretty awesome guitars in the latter half of the song. Always, the closing song, as always, ends the album on a softer ballad-adjacent track. Although, to that credit, it's not the sparkly thing you'd expect to find at the end of your average project, although it does give that impression for the first few moments. Glad to see these potentially future industry leaders taking steps away from this otherwise inoffensive trope. I also want to say that I don't think it should disappear completely. At least for female groups, the occasional very good, softer, more introspective tracks are often some of my favourite. But when it feels like the same old, it's really not the vibe. This year has been pretty stacked, not only with albums, but debuts in general. Now, are ZEROBASEONE getting a few extra brownie points because this album has 3 tracks that have drum and bass elements? Yeah, okay, maybe. But even without that fact, it's hard for me to sit here and gloss over the rest of this group's skill set, which I'm sure they're going to refine as they continue to develop as a group. A great debut is a large contributor in a group's success, and Youth in the Shade is possibly one of the best I've heard this year. Putting this at a 76, I truly cannot sing enough praises about this album. If you're not jamming out with these new kids on the block, you're very likely going to end up feeling pretty damn left out.